Hello, beautiful friends and listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Forest Fire Rising, a safe space to talk about life, the universe, nature, and being our best and most authentic selves. I am Shauna, your host, and I am so grateful to have you back for episode 15. So I'm trying something new this week. I am filming myself to put on YouTube. I've had quite a few people reach out to me and tell me that they are unable to access the other ways to listen to the podcast, so they would like it on YouTube. And I did put last week's episode up on YouTube, but it's just the sound over a picture because I've never videotaped myself before. But now the podcast will be on YouTube. I was really nervous to do this, but now that I'm sitting here, it's kind of fun. I think my setup is good. I set up a little candle, some crystals. I just made myself like a little nook, kind of. I'm in my art studio right now, but hopefully it doesn't look too much like my art studio. Or I guess I'm in my office/art studio. But yeah, I don't know. It feels fun to just sit here and have this little space. So yeah, we're doing it. We're adding the podcast to YouTube. But yeah, fall is here. It finally started cooling off, or not finally. I mean, it's about time in Minnesota anyway for it to cool off. But we usually go right from like super hot to cold, and that's definitely what happens. Like, it's like 60 out right now, I think, and we were still having like 85-degree days last week. But yeah, fall is here. I hope you're all embracing the change. It's definitely a hard time for a lot of people as the weather starts to cool off. Things slow down. Sometimes we don't know what to do. But yeah, just take care of yourself. Drink more water. Add chapstick, lip balm into your skincare routine. That's always, once it starts cooling down, add more moisture into your skincare. Drink more water. We actually hydrate less in the winter when we really should be hydrating more. And I honestly think that's a lot of the reason for flu season and why we're so sick. Lack of sunshine, lack of water. But yeah, things are slowing down, which is a good segue into our topic today. We are going to talk about one of my most asked questions. How do you stay motivated? How do you have the self-discipline that you have? So today we're going to talk about finding motivation through my two things that keep me motivated: self-love and delayed gratification. When we start talking about the delayed gratification, we're going to talk about our brain a little bit and how dopamine and motivation and our emotions and different things and how that all affects our motivation and our drive to meet our goals. But yeah, so I want to start off first by saying, if you follow me on social media and I appear to be extremely motivated, I usually am. Usually I'm pretty motivated, pretty self-disciplined. But just remember that social media is just a highlight reel, and I'm only posting I try to be pretty real on social media, but I'm not posting telling you oh, I skipped my workout today. I probably wouldn't post that, but I will post, oh, I had a great workout today. I love working out. Or I probably won't post the cereal I ate, but I'll post the nice dinner that I made. But just be really mindful when you're comparing yourself to other people. I am going to give you my tips and tricks for staying motivated and what helps me, but just know that don't compare yourself to other people on social media. So we'll start by doing our oracle poll. I'm using the Herbal Astrology Oracle. Ooh, I'm videoing so I can show you guys now. I'm using the Herbal Astrology Oracle by Adriana Isles. This deck is so pretty. The aesthetic, so good. Show showing the camera what the cards look like. But yeah, that's exciting. Okay, let's do our oracle pull. I suppose if you're listening now instead of watching, I might have these gaps. So I apologize for that. I'll figure out how this works and get feedback and everything. I cut the deck and we got chamomile, inner peace. Let's see if it'll focus on the camera. I'm not sure. Chamomile, inner peace. I'm going to relate that right away to our topic because inner peace starts to make me think about the nervous system and just being not stressed out. And the nervous system having a stable nervous system, a peaceful nervous system, regulated. That's the word I was looking for. Nervous system regulation is 100% what I think of when I think of inner peace, and that has a lot to do with our habits and our brain, and our fight or flight response and how we react to stresses. So let's see. If you find yourself often triggered and consumed by small stresses, be aware that they accumulate, creating a chronic state of disharmony and fear. Chamomile today is reminding you to not project your fears onto life and others. Allow yourself to stay a state of internal peace and give yourself the greatest love imagined. Don't push hard to, quote unquote, do the work. It's the gentleness of spirit that heals all. Yeah, all about calm and all about calm. Inner peace is definitely something that can come to you when you learn to master your habits and you learn to love yourself enough to do what you say you're going to do and love yourself enough to pursue your goals. All right, so motivation. How can I reach my goals? How do I build new habits? How can I stick to my routines? And also, how can I prioritize actions that serve my purpose? These are all questions that come to my mind when I'm thinking about motivation, thinking about how I'm going to set my goals and how I'm going to work around them. So how do I stick to my routines? We'll talk about some habits to start new routines and how we set goals. How do I build new habits? And especially, how can I prioritize action that serves my purpose is going to fall under self-love. So we'll talk a little bit about self-love and what it means to be reliable. We'll talk about delayed gratification and how good it feels to really work towards something and then meet a goal. And we'll talk about dopamine and the brain a little bit, and we'll also talk a little bit about how to balance dopamine, what that means, and then we'll talk about the flow state a little bit because I love the flow state. It is total motivation because you just are so stuck in what you're doing. But we'll talk about that later. So self-love and being a reliable person and sticking to your own intentions. So reliability is somebody that is trustworthy and consistent in their actions, words, and behaviors. And being reliable to yourself means sticking to your commitments and goals that you set for yourself. Always do your best. If you are wanting to be a reliable person, if you're wanting to meet your goals, think to yourself, why do I have this goal? You want to be better, you want to grow, and why do you want that? You obviously want better for yourself, right? And that is all about self-love and building this relationship with yourself where you are treating yourself just as good or even better. You're treating yourself better than you treat your friends and family, better than you treat the other people in your life because you're putting yourself first. And growing this relationship with self-love is all about trusting yourself, treating yourself as a friend, and not letting yourself down is what being reliable is all about. So you wouldn't be unreliable to someone else, would you? If you told somebody else you were going to do something, you were going to show up at a certain time, you wouldn't just not do that, right? I hope so. I hope you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I would want people to think of me as a trustworthy and reliable person. So why would you treat yourself any differently? If you tell yourself that you're going to do something, don't let yourself down. Just treat it like you are respecting yourself the same way that you would respect somebody else. And being unreliable overall to yourself or to other people is extremely, extremely unmotivating. It leads to missed opportunities because you're not putting in the work that you know you could. You're not showing up for things that you know you should be showing up for. And you might miss growth. You might miss paths that could take you to where you want to go. But because you are not doing what you say you're going to do, you're not sticking to your to-do list, you are sleeping in when you said you weren't gonna, when you're scrolling on your phone when you could be working on this amazing project you've been wanting to do, missing opportunities, missing things that could bring you the growth and abundance that you're looking for. And being unreliable is also super damaging to the self-esteem, to your self-esteem, and it makes it even harder to set and achieve your goals. If you are constantly not doing what you say you're going to do, constantly getting distracted, constantly veering off your to-do list or messing up your priorities, you're going to start to think lower of yourself. You're going to think, why did I do that? Why can't I just get my shit together? Sometimes yesterday, even I did this yesterday. I had a bunch of stuff on my to-do list and I sat on my phone for an extra half an hour after lunch. And I was like, oh, there went that time that I needed. And I was like, why? Why did I do that? And then right after that, I recognized that I had that thought. And I was like, it's okay. I still have the rest of the day to move forward. And yeah, but you see how that damages your self-esteem if you're unable to rely on yourself to do what you want or need to do. And also, if you find yourself, like the example that I just gave, if you find yourself having thoughts like that or having negative thoughts like that, you can move past it, accept it, give yourself grace, and keep going. Being unreliable increased stress. Like yesterday when I sat on my phone instead of doing something off my to-do list, that created a lot of stress because now I have less time to do the same amount of stuff that I had to do. And if you're doing stuff like that all the time, if you're constantly avoiding, procrastinating, you're going to get overwhelmed. Your to-do list is going to grow and grow and grow. You're going to constantly be thinking, why didn't I do that? And you're going to get overwhelmed. And the thing is, time is going to pass anyway. And it's like, I see this quote all over social media, and it's like, you could go take the class and 6 months will pass. Or you could not take the class and 6 months will pass anyway. But yeah, if you're constantly thinking of everything you have to do and what you're not doing, and you're constantly on yourself about not working hard enough or not meeting your goals, you're going to be stressed out. You're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to look at all this stuff that you want to do, all these goals you have, and it's just going to seem so big and just so big and overwhelming, and it's going to lead to loss of control. When you are not doing, when you don't have a structure, when you're not following what you told yourself you were going to do, you start to lose control. Being reliable gives you more control in your life because you can say, hey, I'm going to do this at this time in this way. I'm going to read one chapter of my book. I'm going to write one page of my paper at this time. That gives you some peace and control. It gives us that inner peace that we read about in the Oracle poll. And then it also, being unreliable leads to loss of trust, damaged relationships with yourself and others. You know, I just talked a whole bunch about how being unreliable with yourself damages your relationship with yourself. But then obviously, same thing to others. You want others to think you're reliable as well. So here are some tips to becoming reliable and being able to count on yourself a little more and building trust and self-love with yourself. Really, when you really just start looking at yourself as somebody that you love, your friend, somebody that you want what's best for yourself, right? Look at yourself as somebody that you want what's best for. And then it will all fall into place because you'll do the things that are best for you and best for your journey. So first of all, set clear goals. If you're going to be reliable, if you're going to count on yourself, you have to know what's expected of you. If you were going to go into a job and you wanted to do a really good job, but nobody ever told you what the expectations were, how are you going to know? How are you going to be able to do a good job? So, like, if your goal is to exercise, what does that mean? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to exercise at home? What time are you going? What muscles are you going to do? Specifically, what are you going to do? Set specific goals because they're way harder to not do. If you have something set, like, think about it. If you have an event to get to at a certain time, how easy is it to just make yourself get up and go to this event? But if you say, oh, I'm going to go grocery shopping tomorrow, but you never said what time or anything like that, it's so easy to just not go, say, oh, I was too tired to go. So yeah, specific goals and your intention. What is your intention? Your intention is to get up and go to the gym at 8 a.m. Or your intention is to read a chapter of your book before bed. Your intention is to make this meal for dinner tonight. That's your intention. And versus a vague goal, like, oh, I'm going to read before bed. I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to cook something for dinner this week. That's vague, and those are so easy to find excuses not to do. So, and when you have these set intentions, you're a lot better equipped to enable them. So I'm getting up and going to the gym tomorrow at 8 a.m. You're able to set an alarm for 7. You're prepared. You pick out an outfit. You pick out a workout outfit the night before. You prepare yourself. And that is so good for the brain too, to just give yourself time to prepare. We'll talk about it a little later, but even like a 10-second countdown to prepare your brain sometimes can do wonders. And next, set manageable goals. If you are somebody that constantly fills your to-do list too full, you're probably somebody that's constantly stressed out about everything you have to do. Me. That's me. I have to work on this so bad. Which is kind of why I love doing these episodes with you, because I get to read and research. I get to think about these things, and then I get to explain them to you, which helps me understand them even better too. And I am definitely not an expert on anything. But I just love discussing this stuff, and it helps me. I hope it helps me just as much as I hope that it helps you guys. So yeah, if you fill your to-do list too full, you're never going to finish everything, and you're just going to constantly feel stressed out. So I think I don't know if this is accurate, but I think the rule is you should pick three things every day that are top of your priority to do those. And then I guess if you need to put other little things on there too, you can. But you should really set three things every day on your to-do list. But not just your to-do list, set manageable goals. Don't be unrealistic. Otherwise, you'll just never achieve them and you'll just feel shitty about them. Break down stuff into smaller goals. If my goal is to, squat 200 pounds, 150 pounds, I'm gonna make a plan to do legs twice a week. And I'm gonna do these other exercises for them. And I'm gonna first work toward squatting 100 pounds. And I'm just gonna break it down so that everything is more manageable. If we look at stuff too large, if we look at everything, it just doesn't work. Make a schedule, use a planner. I love my planner. I love using my planner. I use the Law of Attraction Planner by Freedom Mastery, and it has every day you set those 3 goals, or actually it's 4 in my planner. My planner has 1 main priority and then 3 smaller goals, and I love using it. It gets me in the zone every day. It makes it clear. Every day I have 3 to 4 things every day that I'm going to get done. And then every Sunday, I know what exactly is going on each week, this week. So nothing's a surprise. Our brains hate sudden demands. They're stress invoking. Like, it's so fucking stressful. Think about when you wake up late for school or work. How stressful is it for you to get ready in half or a third of the time as you usually have? Or how stressful is it for you to suddenly be late to work? When minor inconveniences happen that, sudden demands invoke tons of stress. So make a schedule. Use a planner. If you know what to expect, like I said earlier, you have to know what's expected of you in order to be reliable. So if you set a schedule, if you set weekly, monthly goals, daily to-do lists, and yeah. Oh, and that's when I was going to tell you guys about the countdown. So if you are wanting to get up, if you are having trouble getting out of bed, count down from 10. Because on 1, you're going to get up. You gave yourself 10 minutes to prepare. If you are, or 10 seconds, count down from 10. You gave yourself 10 to get up. And your brain is going to be prepared, so you're going to get up. And then hold yourself accountable. Of course, make sure you're assessing, being aware, celebrate little successes. If you did make it to the gym all the times you planned this week, give yourself a little pat on the back, because that gives you a little dopamine boost, which is great. And lastly, the most important one, give yourself grace. If you don't make it, or if you get sick or something like that, give yourself grace and listen to your body. If you do need extra rest, listen to your body. If you are hurting yourself at the gym or whatever, if you are stressing yourself up too much trying to meet your goals, give yourself grace. Reassess. How can you make them more manageable? And if you're not changing things in your life, if you're not acknowledging where you want to change things, you're going to become stuck in a loop of the same shit. And I know you are aware of all this stuff, or you wouldn't be listening to this episode or watching this episode. We all have things we want to change. We all have somewhere we want to be, or else life would just be boring if we weren't pursuing better. You just have to love yourself enough to start, and love yourself enough to know that it's all going to work out, and to know that you're capable, and to love yourself enough to be a reliable kind friend. Love yourself enough to treat yourself like somebody who you want what's best for. Okay, now my second big tip for motivation is to get used to and practice delayed gratification. So, delayed gratification is the opposite of instant gratification. We are literally addicted to instant gratification in these days. We're used to it, and honestly, how can we not be with the world we live in? We live in a world where we can have Amazon deliver something to us today. We live in a world where we can have, whatever we want right away. We can go on our phone and just get it, And that makes it hard when we want to set big goals that require delayed gratification. We used to spend all our time hunting and just trying to stay alive, and that was our purpose. That was our being in constant pursuit of something, and we didn't have time for extra stuff. And we're really not designed for this fast-paced world we live in, where everything is at the tips of our fingers, where we can look at anything we want, where we are constantly having our emotions jumbled. We see a sad video, happy video, funny video, something that pisses us off, all in the span of a minute on social media. We are not meant for that. And yeah, we're just not meant for that. So practice delayed gratification, and that is going to help you put in the work for these bigger goals that are going to take longer. And don't get me wrong, there's tons of things about the world that make our lives easier and so great. But at the same time, this world of instant gratification is majorly messing with our dopamine and reward system. So we're going to talk a little bit about dopamine, the reward chemical. So dopamine is a neuromodulator. That's probably the biggest word I'm going to use, I think. So don't worry. Different from a neurotransmitter, but pretty close. Linked to our sense of motivation. It can help enhance our depth of focus and lower our threshold for taking action toward specific goals. It has a huge role in our perception of ourselves, our perception of life, etc. It's linked to both Parkinson's and ADHD. People with ADHD, like myself, happen to just have lower dopamine levels. So I have definitely looked into this quite a bit and tried a bunch of different things in order to kind of try to trick this system. So we all have a baseline dopamine, and that is like when the average amount of dopamine that is coming out of your brain at any given time. And it can either peak or it can drop based on things that happen to us. So high dopamine means we feel really good, euphoria, and then low when bad things happen or when our expectations are not met is often when a low dopamine drop will happen. And dopamine is all about the journey, not the end goal. So dopamine happens when we are pursuing something. Once you set a goal, big or small, and you get excited about your goal, you get motivated about your goal, your dopamine is going to rise. When you order something online, when you are looking for a dopamine peak, you order something online and now you're waiting for it to come. There's your dopamine peak. And then, let's see, you order something really cute online, your dopamine spikes, and then it comes. And say that you don't care about it as much anymore, or it's just not what you expected, it doesn't make you that happy. your dopamine is going to drop because it was so high up with your expectations. And the drop is directly proportional to the peak. And tricking this system, this dopamine and reward system, is all about balance and staying consistent. We want higher baseline, shorter peaks, and less shallow dips. That's what we want in order to stay constantly motivated, instead of being somewhat motivated and then all of a sudden we're super excited about something, we peaked, and then we get that thing, it's over, we drop. And then we're not as motivated anymore. We want to try to get the levels to stay consistent. So high dopamine, motivated, pursuing goals, wanting, having something to look forward to. You just booked a vacation. That feels so good. You're now looking forward to that vacation. Low dopamine is when we are depressed, unmotivated. When our dopamine is low, we can experience burnout because things just are not as exciting as they used to be. When we first started pursuing something and it was so exciting, and then the reward just gets meh, we're not as excited about it anymore, and then we're stuck doing this thing that we worked really hard on, and the dopamine just is not there anymore, and we experience burnout. So things like I said, ordering stuff, food can spike dopamine, sex can spike dopamine up to 2 times the baseline, working out spikes dopamine, and then addictive things, or even more addictive things like drugs, cocaine, and other drugs can spike dopamine up to 2.5 times. So that's how people get addicted to things. They are spiking their dopamine, and then it drops. And then they're looking for that spike again, and then it drops. And then they are seeking that spike again. So they indulge. And then each time this peak is getting lower and lower and lower, and they're always searching for a spike like they had the first time again. And then the brain is just looking. And social media, you open your social media, you see something that you like, dopamine spike. You post something, you get a bunch of likes, dopamine spike. So that's how social media can affect our dopamine levels. So after a big celebration or activity, graduation, a music festival, giving birth, the baseline dopamine drops. So that's why people get postpartum depression, because they just had this big, exciting thing happen to them, and then the baseline dopamine drops. Or you go to a music festival and you come back and you get what I call post-concert depression or post-festival depression. Your baseline drops, and the drop is directly proportional to the peak. So higher peaks will equal lower lows. And that is why we are striving to make the dopamine balanced. We don't want too high of peaks or too low of lows. We want just generally higher dopamine so that we are staying motivated. So here's some ways that you can balance dopamine. Getting sunlight in the morning is going to start your hormone cycle. It's going to help get your circadian rhythm on track. It is going to help all the chemicals get balanced, because that's getting back to nature. We're animals. We're meant to be in line with the earth and the sun. So getting sunlight in the morning, and also avoiding your phone and bright lights before bed. So get sunlight first thing in the morning. Shut your phone off an hour or 2 before bed. Don't look at these bright lights or screens. And also cold showers. I love a good cold shower or a cold plunge, and cold immersion has actually been shown to spike your dopamine, but raise dopamine levels and keep them elevated as you go. So a cold shower, I love them. I think they're great. yeah, I can't say enough about how much I love cold water. Caffeine both boosts dopamine and can increase sensitivity of dopamine receptors, meaning that it's kind of more of a long-lasting effect. Yeah. Limit scrolling. And then delayed gratification is another way to help limit dopamine. And some ways that you can practice delayed gratification is investing in your hobbies, doing something like a painting. That is delayed gratification because it's all about the journey, you know, the process when we're making art. Going camping has a lot of steps to it. You have to go, you have to get set up. Nothing about it is instant. And yeah, those are all delayed gratification. They also add resilience, adaptability, lowering stress levels, investing in your hobbies, and practicing delayed gratification, because when things go wrong, you learn how better to adapt to stress. And that's just a great thing also for our nervous system. Get into the flow state, which is getting into the zone. The flow state gives you a sense of fluidity. We are so connected to what we're doing. So if you're practicing your hobby or whatever you like, try to get into the flow state. Give your brain, it's almost a break. For me, it's a break. The flow state is, because I'm not thinking, I'm just focused on what I'm doing. It's such a deep sense of fluidity and connection between the mind and body. So at one with whatever you're experiencing. If you are dancing, if you're painting, even if you're building something, if you're writing, you are so connected that you're thinking about nothing other than doing this thing. And you are so engrossed in the journey, which, like we said, the journey, great for balancing dopamine, being focused on the journey, delayed gratification, the journey, and you're just so deeply focused beyond the point of distraction. If you've ever seen the movie Soul, a Pixar movie, they have the flow state in there, where when people are in the flow state, they're in I don't remember what it's called in the movie, but they're in like another spiritual place. Not the great beyond or the great before, something else. I don't remember what it's called, but their soul is in another place because they're so focused that they are no longer connected to the physical. They are having a spiritual experience in the flow state. It starts with focus, and then it just keeps becoming more intense until it moves into a sense of ecstasy. And this is where your motivation is so high. So that's why getting into the flow state is like your highest efficiency, highest productivity, because you're feeling so good and you're so motivated to keep going. And it's also a sense of intrinsic motivation, meaning that you are getting motivation within from yourself. You're not seeking external validation. You're not wanting somebody to tell you how good you're doing. You are just focused on getting that done. And your pursuit of your goal is what is motivating you. Intrinsic motivation. Let's see. Movement is a great example. I already said dancing and stuff. And that's a great way to connect an intention to a movement or flow. It's so powerful to align yourself with your goals. And the flow state is honestly less common during relaxation, and it's easier to obtain during a challenging or stimulating time. But the thing is, not too challenging. So if you want to practice getting into the flow state, you need to do something that is challenging enough that you're not bored, but not too challenging so you're not frustrated. Something medium, something you like to do, something that your brain can focus on. And over time, practicing this focus and being able to easier get into the flow state is going to be essential for achieving your goals. And some tips I have for getting into the flow state: meditation, practice quieting the mind, practice mindfulness. By definition, mindfulness being totally aware and present in the present moment. is mindfulness. So by definition, it goes hand in hand with the flow state where you're just so focused and in the zone, and do stuff you care about. If you don't have passion or drive behind something, you're not going to get into the flow state because you're just not going to get, you don't care. You don't care about the journey or getting to the end. And by meditating and quieting our brains, we get used to distractions and we practice so that we can better observe versus engage. So meditating is when we have thoughts, but we don't acknowledge them. Or we do acknowledge them, but we don't engage with them. So you just acknowledge it, let it go by, you observe, but you're not going to dwell on whatever thought passes by. And by practicing meditation, we can practice doing that while we do other activities, and that helps us get into the flow state. I already said practice with medium stimulating tasks, focus on the journey, and make it a ritual. Make it a ritual that you are prioritizing. Say, I am going to dance at this time tomorrow night, and I'm going to try to get into the flow state. Put on something you love to wear, something that feels so good to you. Put on some music you love. Light a candle or an incense. Make it a ritual. Prioritize this ritual. Make a date with yourself because you love yourself and you want this for yourself. And then lastly, eliminate distractions. So make it a ritual. And that is my challenge for you this week as we end this episode, is to get in the flow state this week and do something you love, care about. Make it a ritual to quiet your mind and just seek this sense of motivation that I tell you about. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I love you all so much, and I hope that this episode was helpful for you about finding motivation through self-love and delayed gratification. I love you all so much.